My dad migrated, and only way I can contact him or see him or anything is over phone.
Growing up, I was the only one out of my friends who didn't really have their parents around.
My mom has been living abroad from I was like 3 years old.
Barrel children are children who are waiting to rejoin their parents in the metropole. They receive material goods in the form of shoes, clothing, food, but they lack the emotional nurturance that they need.
The name comes from the shipping containers used to send those goods back home.
Living in Brooklyn, I have a lot of friends who were parents of barrel children, and some were barrel children themselves, And I was, over the years, observing, watching, listening, what was happening with especially mother-daughter relationship. And the first thing that would come out of the child's mouth is, "You're not my mother. You can't tell me what to do." Situation just deteriorated from there.
For decades, sending barrels have been a way to sustain families still living in the Caribbean. They're also an attempt to maintain an emotional connection.
If you notice the generation, like the younger generation, they can communicate more. The older generation, it was hard for them to communicate with their children. They said, "I wish I could have communicated more with my children to tell them what really happened to me. It's just that it's not that I didn't want to see them, but this is what I had to do to make their life better. Maybe not so much their young life better, but their adult life better."
Wow.
They were seeing the big picture. That is how. So from men, I got a lot of response from men. Surprisingly, a lot of the buyers of the book were men, and they were like, "Wow, I wish I could have talked to my parents. I wish we could have, we could have talked about it, because they're still feeling resentment that their mom left them, and when they came, they had maybe new brothers and sisters, new families, and whatever. And they just, although they had all the material things they needed, they just didn't have their mothers there. But the thing is, they didn't talk about their fathers not being there.
15-year-old Lejean Reed was 8 years old when his father moved to Canada.
Although I have my mother, my stepdad, and my two brothers, I feel lonely because he don't call and those things. If I don't call, he don't call.
Wow. So it's like, you sacrificed my childhood to give me an adulthood, as you said, Pamela. This is a very interesting notion. Many people have undergone this. So I want to talk with Dr. Melrose Rattray. Let's get her into this discussion. Dr. Rattray, when and how did you first become acquainted with this topic?
And I've been at this from about the early 90s in terms of trying to document and write it down. But my interest in it has been since maybe the early 80s. One, because I had the privilege of working in the family court system when the family court just began in Jamaica. And throughout my journey as a social worker and working in both probation and in the family court system, I recognize that many of the children who came through the family court and families who came through, that was at the root of the issue. Children whose parents were away and the children are giving trouble, they're having signs of grief and, a lot of hurt. A lot of raising themselves or being raised in context where they were not comfortable. And so you found that resulted in behaviors that could be considered deviant. And so I think my interest in it has been since that time. I became really more serious about it in the early 90s. And Claudette Crawford Brown and I was teaching by then. I had left family court and was teaching at UWI. And we became recognized that we had a shared concern and interest. And that was when we did the Barrel Children, a paper on the Barrel Children of the Caribbean. And we looked then at how those remittances come and how certainly when parents are absent, then you have to compensate somehow, And the Barrel sometimes somehow did that. So
You have deep psychological reactions, and they revolve around feelings of worthlessness, sadness, and sometimes that pain can last for a lifetime.
She stresses the importance of communication.
they have to prepare the child beforehand. And the notion of letting the child know exactly what is happening and when it is going to happen is not something that is left up to chance, but the child has to be involved in the process. There have to be family meetings.
26-year-old Nacia Houghton's mom left 2 decades ago to work as a nurse in Canada.
From as long as I can remember, no one in my household has ever worked in Jamaica. The entire household is supported from people living abroad.
The salary her mom earns is now putting her through school and supporting her grandparents. Artist Kellyanne Lindell's parents left Jamaica for the U.S. when she was only 8 years old. She now creates work inspired by her experience as a barrel child.
The bond that my mother would hope that we have, we don't necessarily have. And I think that had to do with the fact that I had to sort of separate myself to kind of keep myself from hurting.
When, they were so excited to get their children here, because they see the future that awaits them here. But when they came, their relationship soured to the point where sometimes the mothers, the children has to basically move out of the house. They have to go live with another family member. There's a big void, and the children are angry because the mothers that when they come, they see mom, they see like a new family. They have new brothers and sisters, because you have to realize that the women they immigrate here, come to the United States, they came young. They're young people. Most of them were unmarried mothers in Jamaica, so they're starting a new family. So the children, the mothers are excited, but they don't know how to move on with the relationship.
So now it's almost like she would say that I don't care, or like I'm really cold towards her, but that's not the case. It's just our relationship is just, I do love you, I do care about you, but that closeness that she would want, it's just not there.
Linda wants her artwork to spark more conversation about how parental absence can impact people throughout their lives, not just during childhood. With migration being a path out of economic hardship for many people in the Caribbean, it's unlikely to end anytime soon.
Find a way to contact your child. There's so much method of communication. Speak to them as often as possible. Get involved in their life. Know their decision. Know when they're sad. Know when they're unhappy. Find the time to communicate with your child or your loved ones or family.